Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, writer Chinwe John. Today we are speaking with composer Bernard Hughes. I am Chinwe John, and Bernard and we collaborated together on our album Songs for Our Times. So, hello, Bernard.
Hi, Chinwe. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So, just a little bit about Bernard. So Bernard is one of the leading composers of choral music in the UK. He's critically acclaimed, has won multiple awards, and has worked with great ensembles like the BBC Singers. Am I correct? Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
And Epiphany Consort.
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. And his latest album prior to ours was Bagatelles,
hmm
an album of piano music that was very well received. So welcome, Bernard.
Thank you, Chinwe.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about our song cycle. Bernard and I, last year, we collaborated together on a song cycle called Metropolis. And that song cycle joined one I had written a few months earlier, along with composer Stuart McRae. And so together, that song cycle Kingdoms and Bernard and ours, which is called Metropolis, make up the album Songs for Our Times, which was released on the Divine Arts record label in September of this year, on September 13th, actually. And then that's our album cover up in the insert up on the upper corner. And we're just going to be talking about the songs there. I'll be speaking on the lyrics. I'm the lyricist, and Bernard is, of course, the composer, and he'll be speaking about the music. So, Bernard, your turn to.
Yeah. So I worked with Chinwe as a result of her inviting me to set her words to music, and it was a very fruitful collaboration. It was very smooth, and although Chinwe had lots of opinions about the music, which was wonderful, and yeah, something I really enjoyed doing. And I guess I tend to work a lot with texts of written by people who are no longer with us, so often quite old texts. So it was a real pleasure to work for a change with a living and very active and very thoughtful writer like Chinwe.
Thank you very much. So this album, Songs for Our Times, for our song cycle Metropolis, what I wanted was a situation whereby, let's say, if we still exist as the earth 1,000 years from now, somebody came across this music, they would have just an idea of what era we were in, something about the times. It had to be something that was very relevant and something that would speak to everyone, regardless of where you are in the world. And so we have themes that are basically universal. The other thing we wanted was to have songs that people could actually sing. You know, with a lot of art songs, sometimes, yes, they're art songs and they're very beautiful, but you can't necessarily sing them unless you're a professional singer. But in this case, we have songs that you can actually sing, and there's no compromise on the complexity of the music or the lyrics. So at least that's what we're working for. And we're hoping that perhaps some of you might already have heard some of the songs. If not, I do have some samples that I'll be playing throughout the show. So the first song on our song cycle is Metropolis. And so for Metropolis, for the lyrics, so I'll speak about the lyrics, Bernard, and then you go in with the music. So for the lyrics, let's see, it starts with these are the unforgiving zones where these are the unforgiving zones where lives. Let's go. Hold on. Let's go. There we go. These are the unforgiving zones where lives imprisoned freely roam. The urban planners' failed design kept hidden from discerning eyes. So with this first verse, what I was trying to paint out are areas where you have people who are considered to be on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale or just undesirable areas. It's not so stark, maybe, I don't know, in the UK, but over here in America, it's very stark in terms of zoning, who lives where and what that means to you in terms of where you can go to school and just what you can access. So there's certain areas which are considered to be undesirable, and that's why I wrote it as unforgiving zones, because those areas often have violence and things like that. And I was dealing in this song, I was in my mind directly referencing the fentanyl epidemic, which we have here. It's a problem as well in the UK and other places, but it's really pronounced here, and perhaps it's because our population is much larger. So, for example, in 2022, there were about approximately 90,000 people who passed away from overdoses attributed to fentanyl. And in a long time ago, I say long time ago, in the 60s, 70s, usually these drug overdoses were taking place in particular areas, the inner city slums or inner city ghettos, if I can use those words. But as time has progressed, now you're having these sort of overdoses taking place in places where people wouldn't typically consider that they would happen. And so, what was initially a problem in society that was confined to a certain class, supposedly, has now spread on to involve everyone, all of society, and it's now a big problem. And what I was trying to touch on in this song is when you've got a problem, even if it starts out being just restricted to a particular group of people or socioeconomic class, in time it will spread and affect the entire society as a whole. And this applies to everything. So even though I was thinking about fentanyl in particular, it would involve things, for example, like how you have areas of higher pollution, where you have industries that produce a lot of pollution. They are often located in places where you have people who don't necessarily have the means to fight legally to block those companies. So again, lower socioeconomic class. And so it affects them and is considered to be their problem alone. But again, the problem spread. Whatever goes into the water will eventually contaminate all the water in the area. So that sort of thing. And yeah, so that's why in verse 2, I went, poisoned waters know no course, soon returning to their source. The reaper moves across divides, uniting all beyond the lines. And by lines, I was referring to these zones and these artificial demarcations that we have in our community, separating one set of people from the other. And the chorus is, from the door of a derelict building, a voice calls, it's echoed back, grief unyielding from behind walls. And what that meant is, in the end, the sorrow and the grief that is felt in one community or in one group of people is no different from what's felt in the next community. And we are all united in grief with these problems. So that's the lyrics.
So, so it's worth saying, I guess, Chinwe, that this song is the first of the cycle, but actually we reversed the order on the album. So in fact, this comes up as the second song, and I think on balance, I prefer it as the second song because it is quite bleak in some ways, both in the words and in the music I chose. So in the recorded order, we start with what was the song.
Shepherds, yes.
So this one, yeah, I started with that chorus, which is very simple in its accompaniment, very chordal, almost a little bit hymn-like, and using very, very few notes in the melody. And then I went from there back to writing the verses, and the verses are characterized by, again, almost a kind of free-flowing melody line that's almost like recitative or just kind of very much in speech rhythm, and with very few pitches, very very limited melodic outline, and the piano accompaniment characterized by these very almost sinister tremolo. So you've got the high tremolo in the piano right hand to begin with, and low chords in the left hand, and then later on the tremolo switches round. So there's a real sense of tension in the music, and a kind of bleakness in terms of it's mostly very quiet. It moves quite slowly, so that was very much the thinking. And actually, as with a couple of the other ones, starting with the chorus kind of gave me the confidence that then I could head through the verse to arrive at that point. That although it's bleak, it's less bleak than the verse. The verses have the real tension. And I guess that in terms of the the way these songs are all structured as a general point that Chinwe very much in the lyrics you sent me were marked out as verse and chorus and verse and chorus. So it gave a clue to the structure of these songs as traditional verse chorus songs. So the verse music is not exactly the same, but broadly the same between the two verses, and then we have this recurring chorus, and that's something that happens in probably most of the songs. As we'll come on to them, but yeah, that's an introduction, and I guess when it fades away at the end, there's a kind of kind of a direction downwards at the end, both in terms of the direction of the melodic line. So it builds up to the high note, and then everything kind of sags at the end and ends with a very, very low, slightly sinister tremolo on the piano left hand. So it's the darkest of the songs, I think
Yeah.
and I think that's reflected in the music I wrote.
Yes, let me see if I can play a sample of the music. Yeah, let's see. I hope that came out clearly. So that's just a sample of Metropolis, and that's Isabel Haley, the soprano, and the pianist is Christopher Glynn. Yeah, we recorded this live at St. Jude's.
London, yeah.
Yes, London.
Yeah. All right. I think we're saying, I mean, maybe this is a good time to say that Isabel Haley, who I'd not worked with before, was an extraordinary find for us as the singer on this project, and I think you can hear through that, and actually the different character that she captures in the different songs. She was an absolute delight to work with, and really, an extraordinary singer who has quite a career in front of her.
Yeah, amazing. All right, so actually, Bernard is right. Metropolis we worked on first, but on the album, the first song is The Shepherds. And The Shepherds, just to put it very simply, would just be my sort of if I could come to call it an anti-war song, but maybe that's what it is in the simplest sense. And it's one of the shortest because there really isn't much to say there. At the end of the day, all that happens, all you get from it is death. That's what it is. And let's see how it starts. Who can we trust to narrate the tale? The heroes and villains seem one and the same. Is the raging fire that seeks to make pure so different from that which seeks to destroy? Maybe I miss the gift which allows one to hear the wisdom that resounds in the air. Excuse me if I sound weary and worn. This cycle's already played out before, and after all the words have been said, we'll bury the dead. And then there's a second verse, and then the same chorus.
Yeah. So in fact, not only did this was this the first song, ended up as the first song on the album, but this was where I started. This was the first bit that I wrote, and I started with that chorus. Excuse me if I seem weary and worn. And what I found was a nice thing where the line is sung by the singer and then echoed by the piano. So there's a kind of call and response between the singer and the accompaniment. And I think that was the point at which, and I sketched that down. I often, the way I work is with a text is to not even think about it in the front of my head, but just to kind of have it floating around the back of my head. And what I did with this was I think the day I got the text, I sketched out that chorus, and then I don't think I worked on it for a while. It was I had to work quite fast. It was quite a short lead time on the project, but I think I probably then put it away for a week or so, and then came back, and then when I still liked that bit, when I came back to it, that I thought, okay, that's going to work. And that's kind of the way into the musical language of the whole song.
Yeah.
With this kind of modal, so it's in a kind of Aeolian mode on E flat. So it has echoes, I guess, of some English composers like Vaughan Williams or people like that. And then the verse has an interesting thing where which is something I often do with words where they're in irregular rhythms. So in time signature terms, in time signatures like 7/8 and 5/8, and jumping around between those, because it's following the flow of the words. And so the idea is that although it's irregular, it actually sounds very natural, because in fact it's more natural to sing those syllables as they come out, rather than to try and squeeze them or force them into 4/4 time or 2/4 time or whatever. So the verses, again, a little bit like the previous song, have a fluidity to them, have a slightly recitative feel, where the piano is just accompanying in block chords with these kind of modal chords. And then having so the order of composition was having written that chorus and then gone back and filled in those verses, which are kind of the same chord progressions, but just with different scansion and different rhythms. And then I finally added the introduction, which is a kind of slightly so it kind of floats down from above the very beginning and floats down the kind of whole keyboard, and then that comes back as a little motif between lines of the text, and it's focused around the intervals of the fifth and the fourth, so quite open space to quite wide spaced and kind of non-committal harmonies. And then when that comes back at the end, comes back between the verses, slightly more elaborated with little decorative notes. And then when it comes back at the end, it's got even more kind of filigree textures within it. There's never quite a straight repeat, but it just has a slight feeling of development through it. But once I've got those verses and chorus place, then putting the architecture of the introduction and the bit in the middle and the play out just gave it that overall structure. So that is The Shepherds, and in some ways, perhaps my favourite of the songs. We shouldn't really have favourites, and maybe there's others, but I think I like the sound of this one.
Yes. I'm going to play. I'm going to play a bit of it, and I'm going to try and see if I can share the screen, and so I can show people like a bigger copy of our album. So while it's playing, we're not. Now, let me see if I can do all of that. A lot of technical work. So this is The Shepherds.
I'll just step down.
Let's see if I can.
Who can we trust to narrate the tale? The heroes and villains seem one and the same. Is the raging fire that seeks to make pure so different from that which seeks to destroy? Maybe I missed the gift which I lost one to hear, the wisdom in the words that resound through the air. Excuse me if I seem weary and worn. This cycle's already played out before, and after all the words have been said, and after all the words have been said, we'll bury the dead, bury the dead.
There you go.
I do like that texture, which is absolutely not my invention, but that dialogue between the singer and the piano echoing those lines. I think that is
Beautiful,
something
beautiful.
you like to hear in a texture. Yeah.
Yeah, the songs are all in a way they're also different with the music. Like each one is my favorite for that particular style. Yeah, I find it hard to pick one and say, oh, this is my absolute. It's very hard. All right. Now let's see. So after the Shepherds, so Metropolis, and then Call Home. Okay. Our next song was Call Home. So with Call Home, it wasn't autobiographical from my end. I was trying to deal with the theme of when you've newly emigrated out somewhere, and you start to long for home. At times you get homesick, and sometimes you remember home differently from how it actually was. So sometimes, especially if you're going through a difficult time when you're adjusting to your new country, you may have a more glossy view of the place you left than it actually was, and that's normal. And then the people back home will encourage you, and then you forge on and you adapt in time. So it was just it was just that, and then to just sort of contrast between the environments of what you find in a lot of Western countries compared to what you will find in a continent like Africa, more bustling. You know, the streets. Let me see. So call home, this would be verse 1, where the mangrove lines the banks and the palm trees grow, where the leaping gazelle dance and the harmattan blows, I call home. And then on verse 3, I contrast, I go, a double shift, then home at last. The streets are empty, though it's bright. Astride the present and the past, to live the dream comes with a price. I call home. I'm just trying to make some contrast between these two continents. But really, it wouldn't just be Africa. I mean, most places you hardly find the kind of quiet, clean streets that you would find in places like where I am in America or in London. You know, you have street sellers. Especially actually contrasting America even with the UK, it's very different if you've been here. You know, we don't really have so many of those mom and pop family small little stores or a lot of street entertainers and things like that you would find in a place, you know, like France and places like that. So it's just a different look, especially if you're in a suburban area. It can be very quiet. You can come out and just not find anyone, and you're not necessarily in the countryside. It's just the suburbs, and it's a very different feel. And people who are used to a more bustling environment may find it maybe a bit too quiet. So I was just contrasting, and for this one, you know, for the music, you're going to talk about the music, not me. But that's all it was. Just something discussing the nostalgia when one looks back with the place of origin with nostalgia. But of course, there's a reason why you left to accomplish something, and so you adapt.
Yeah. So musically, obviously, this is a change of tone in terms of having had the two quite slow and quite dark toned songs. Then we have really quite a cheerful in some ways. There's certainly a more upbeat tone to it. And this was where, Chinwe, you pointed me towards high life music.
Yes.
Now I'm very aware that I'm never been to Nigeria and I don't have a direct experience of that, and I certainly have no intention of culturally appropriating that style. But what I did is I looked at, and Chinwe, you sent me a video of a high life keyboard player.
Yeah.
And I guess what I wanted to take from that was, as a composer, to take the texture that was generated. And it's a very interesting kind of constant movement, but it's not quite straight arpeggios. It kind of fills in gaps and goes here and there and moves, keeps the texture moving even while the harmony is staying the same. So I kind of took an inspiration from that texture without any sense of wanting to borrow the musical style itself. Although I guess also the other aspect I took from it was to say that there's a certain harmonic complexity about the first two songs, particularly Metropolis, the first one. And this one I wanted to go for a much simpler texture, harmonic style, simpler chord structure, simpler chord progression, and actually kind of milk that for what that's there. There's still some rhythmic tricks going on, particularly in the last little bits where I let Isabel float right up to her highest note. And I think also within the structure, I tried to look at the fact that Chinwe, you This one doesn't have a chorus as such. This is just 4 verses. But as you pointed out, the third verse has this change of tone where instead of thinking about the old home in Nigeria, the focus is on the double shift at home now. So I have what is effectively a middle 8 there, where there's a slight darkening of the harmony, leading up with a big drawn out, what's technically called dominant preparation, a big passage of getting ready for the return to the return to that original tune. So yeah, I like this one. I think there's a certain life to it, and I think Isabel's performance of this is wonderful, and also worth a nod to Chris. So
Yes, yeah.
I guess it's worth saying. So Chris Glynn, the pianist, I am a very limited pianist myself, and so although I like writing for piano, I'm very careful not to limit myself in terms of what I write according to what I can play. So I quite often with these things don't write them at the keyboard myself for fear that my own fingers will get in the way. So I wrote something that actually looks, on paper, this looks very, very complicated. It's actually not a hugely complicated to play once you get the groove of it, but this is a good example of something where the notation of this style of music actually isn't suited to Western notation because of the way on the page there's lots of ties and lots of different up and down stems. But anyway, Chris plays this beautifully, and I think it's he really gets the looseness of it and the sense of fun that's there, and I think this is probably my favorite performance of all of them on the album in terms of the two come together. I think they do this just right, and you know, again, worth saying that the recording sessions were a delight, and I've never had a recording session as smooth where we finished with that much time to spare. Isabel in particular had at fairly short notice learned the notes phenomenally well. We had a few retakes, but really it was one of the, and Chinwe, you won't have as much recording studio experience as I do, and I don't have anything like as much as Chris will have, but I certainly from my point of view, I've never known a session finished with that much free time, with so little stress, with so little retake. So that's an absolute tribute to Isabel on that front as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Isabel Haley and Christopher Glynn, they were absolutely wonderful. You're right. Prior to that recording, I had the one before. So we recorded Kingdoms first.
It was the day before.
The day before, and then it was our recording. And let's see, was it our recording where someone started mowing? They were contracted to mow the premises.
The day we were there was the rain, with the rain coming.
Ours was the rain. Okay, so so it was the day before. The day before, we were doing the recording session, and suddenly we hear this mowing sound, and we go out, and they're like, "Yeah, they were contracted by the county to clean up the area. Today is the day." And I'm like, "But I only have this time, you know." So I called over. Fortunately for us, because it actually wasn't even in control of the church. They say, well, this isn't the church, this is now the county or something. And so the man said, well, what are you doing? And we're like, we're recording. It's like, oh, well, it so happens I'm a musician too.
Oh, really?
Like, oh, yes. And it's like, yeah, okay, I understand, and we'll pack it up. So we had the people mowing the premises the first day, and then on our recording, it was the raindrops, pit patter, you know, and in spite of everything went smoothly, and that again is credit to the performers. I was just so blessed. We were all blessed to have such talented people, such amazingly talented people to pull this off, pull it off. So I was busy loading up Call Home because I would like that to play. Yeah, so I'll play a bit of that. Let's come here. And I'm gonna share the screen. Start to see.
Where the mangrove lines the banks and the palm trees grow, where the leaping gazelle dance and the harmattan blows. I call home, where the harmattan blows. I call home. I remember dazzling festive lights, raucous laughter all about, outfits elegant and bright, double shift, then home at last. The streets are empty, though it's bright. Astride the present and the past. To live the dream comes with a price. I call home, I call home, I call home.
Okay. Get this out there. Yeah.
There's a sense of fun to that, isn't there? Which I really like. And magnificent singing. I think I'm not. I work with singers a lot, but I'm not a singer, and I'm constantly flabbergasted and impressed by what singers can do. I'm constantly inspiration of what they can do.
Amazing. Okay, let's see. So the next song was "When Apart."
Yeah.
I'm laughing because honestly, with this song, I thought you were going to say that's it, and you were. Okay, so with "When Apart," what I wanted to touch on was these days, a lot of the times, people are communicating, of course, with smartphones or some sort of video. There's some sort of video inputs, and people are able to communicate due to the technology with people wherever they are in the world. So it's all changed now. And I was trying to write something romantic, but so now we're not in the era where you'll be writing letters to each other and stuff like that. So it's using technology, but then I didn't want it to be a video call. I wanted it to be a phone call and just good old fashioned pillow talk. So that's what it was, and I wanted it to be really romantic. I kept stressing that, and it was. I mean, this is it's like a conversation. So it's just the one person calling the other, and you don't hear what the other person is saying back, but you can sort of reference from what the one speaker keeps saying, and and it's just I love it. Music wise, to be honest, it's hard to say favorite. You know, as like I said, they're all so different, and so I love each of them for what they are. But music-wise, I love this because there's just so many changes in the music, you know. But you talk about the music.
Yeah, I mean, this was the one that we spent the longest back and forth over, and there were more versions of this than all the others. And that, I mean, that partly speaks to how smooth the process was for the others. That pretty much for the others, I wrote the music, and you said yes, it's great, and we went from there. Whereas this one, there was definitely some back and forth. And I think the point with this is you have this, although it is set out in verse structure, it is very operatic, and it is very really recitative in terms of the fluidity of the music. And then this build up through these kind of passages of mundane conversation, which are done in fairly straight recitative style, and then we get to this verse 4 where the romantic side of it blossoms and it becomes more poetic and elevated, and at that point have quite a complex piano texture, quite almost, I guess, Rachmaninoff kind of richness of, it's actually in notation terms of on 3 staves to give the different parts their room. I've got an interaction of triplets and quavers and semi-quavers, so it's quite rhythmically dense, with a fairly straightforward harmonic outline, but I liked this idea of going through from the conversation being quite mundane, if not boring, then hitting that point of romantic outburst, and that's how it moves on. I have a lot of this tremolo, which in the piano is an alternation of a fast alternation of notes, which if I was orchestrating it would be string instruments just giving a kind of bed for the music to go on over the top, and then, as I say, when it builds up and bursts out into that romantic outburst, then we have actually possibly of all the whole song cycle the most lyrical vocal line, the most expansive vocal line, which you know has a kind of, the idea was that it floats up at that point and it kind of takes off into a different kind of territory. So, well, I'm really glad you like this one so much, because it was definitely the hardest work, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it was the hardest work to get to it being right, and I'm glad we I spent that time, because I think it's and then the ending again. It goes back to the tremolos at the ending, but in where the tremolo at the beginning was kind of underscore, almost like you'd have in film underscore. At the end, it's this kind of angelic, very high, low octaves on the piano, and then these high tremolo on both hands. So, yeah, I think it kind of goes on a journey, but probably more than the other songs goes on a journey.
Yes.
And I like that about it.
Yeah, I love that part too. So I'll play a little bit of it. I can't play the whole thing. Please, you can check it out. But I do highly recommend that you try to listen to these songs if you can, especially to get the end. That note Isabel hits at the end, or those, oh my God, that high note, so beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, let me play this. Let's see.
Did I wake you? Sorry, are you sure? It's just I feel so restless, you know. How did all the meetings go? That's great. Can't wait to have you home. The phone signal isn't very strong. Okay, I'll just listen to your voice. Sounds like you have the TV on, Dene. I've seen that one. Can't wait to have you home. I wish that you, like Zeus, would come.
There we go. All right, let's take this off. And here we go. Yes. Okay, so that was When Apart, and I showed some pictures. That was Isabel Haley with the microphones. Christopher Glynn was the gentleman. The last picture I showed on the screen. All right, and our next song was A Bedtime Tale. So in A Bedtime Tale, I just wanted to have fun. So in addition to writing poetry and lyrics, I write stories as well. I actually published, it's supposed to be a series. This I think is beautiful, adventure novel series, and I published the first book and never had time to do the rest because it's this epic big thing, and I will get to everything one day. And the thing about it though, because I feel like, oh my God, I'm not the same person I was then. So I feel like I probably may have to go back and tweak the first one. So I'm like, goodness. So this was a way for me to just satisfy that storytelling aspect of my artistry. I love to tell a good story. And I also wanted to touch on the theme of, the heroine. So lots of times in the action adventure, at least in the I call it olden days, but just typically it's the prince saving the princess and that sort of thing. So I wanted to have a female heroine come in and save the day, and not a romantic. She's not saving a romantic suitor. It's a brother, it's a sibling. So just sibling love and female heroine, and just tell a good story, but do it in a few verses. And I love that too. And the music did that as well, telling this beautiful story. So how does it start off? We start off with the moon sits low, the dust rises high, the sound of horns and a distant cry. By the walls of the city gates, a blind seer sits and waits. They know the hour is nigh. So that's the opening verse, and then it just moves through this story. So yeah, it's a story.
So yeah, it has. When I respond to text, I guess the way a reader might do, which is the surface meaning and so on, and what the poem's about or the text is about. Whereas I kind of go either side of it, which is on the one hand more specific, i.e. the actual rhythm of the words, the scansion of the words, the stress of the words, and the way that the words fit together. And then at the other side of it, the vibe, if you like, the overall just kind of sense that comes out of the words. So in this case, it's very much this kind of fantasy tale, fairy tale account of someone approaching a castle at night and slipping through the gates and so on. So it has quite a broad kind of fantastical feel to it. Starts very, very simply. Again, with a kind of childlike, like you're telling this story, a bedtime tale to a child. So very, very simple melodic outline, and then that gets gradually more complicated until we get to Light of Foot, and then the piano starts scurrying around, really very, very fast accompaniment, and building to a big kind of chordal climax, and then. Originally, this was going to be the last song of the cycle, so I was thinking it's always interesting to how you think, not just how do I end this song, but how do I end the whole cycle. And so it goes back to that very simple opening. We have this a new dawn is about to break, so a really nice line to end as we originally planned, end the whole thing on a new dawn is about to break. And then it ends, and I really wondered about this. It ends with a chord, an unresolved chord, and I thought, do I not resolve this chord? Do I resolve it down onto a minor chord, which has been the predominant feeling for the whole piece, the key of the whole piece, or do I resolve it onto what's in musical terms called a tierce de Picardy, a major third at the end in a minor key piece? And I did go for that in the end, and I sometimes wonder if I made the right choice on that, because I slightly have a feeling of I've got an old teacher whose opinion I respect on these things, and I kind of wonder if I hear his voice saying you slightly copped out on that last note, or you kind of gave into your better nature. So, but then obviously we added another song on and afterwards, which kind of makes sense, a little bit more sense of that note in a way, which I like and I really like. I think actually works better with that final song. But it's like you sometimes get. Like actually in the opera, the Rake's Progress, for instance, the opera, the Rake's Progress, where you get this very sad ending, the death of the Rake himself, and this kind of mournful chorus, and then boom, you just get a little post curtain little silly song, and so it's almost like we have that we have the serious ending, and then just this little postlude that we'll talk about in a moment. So that is that's the bedtime tale.
Yeah, I'll play a little bit of that too, perhaps. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay. And so that was a bedtime tale. And yes, our last song for the cycle was The River's Course, which was, I won't say a last minute addition, but because the way it worked, I have all these songs that come, and when I approached you, I hadn't written it at that time, and but I always have something in my mind. I always have lines that are running through my head. And depending on what I think I want to write on or which of the lines is ready, then I put that down. And this came out. So at this point, I had spoken with Christopher Glynn. I'd spoken with him and invited him to come on, and he agreed. And he said, "Well, if you want this to actually be an album, it needs to be a bit longer, you know." And I was like, "Oh, I have just a song," because I had the line and had written it. And I think I gave you a choice between this song and another, which I have shaped out again and had done, and you picked this one. So with the Rivers course, I touch on a couple of themes. The first is the River Niger itself as a river. So the River Niger is the third longest river in Africa, and it's the longest river in West Africa. And there aren't a lot of songs about it, or any that I am aware of. And the songs on the River Nile, lots of songs. The song by Madness comes. There's one by Madness that comes to mind. There are all kinds, but not the River Niger. And the River Niger played a very crucial role in shaping the history of West Africa, especially. So the River Niger has a very unique course. It's shaped like a boomerang, and it's emerges in the Guinea. Its origin is in Guinea, on a mountainous area, and it's just about 200 miles away from the Atlantic Ocean, but it doesn't empty into it. Instead, it heads up north through the Sahara Desert, sharp bend, and then comes down again through Nigeria, and then empties into the Delta, the Niger Delta basin, huge basin. And then they have this place they call the Gulf of Guinea that directly goes then into the Atlantic Ocean. So as you can imagine, this was a key route for trade, and also a key route for a part of history that people find painful. Of course, we find painful, because this was how the slave traders who came through the water were able to take people out. And then another theme I had in mind was the fact that some cultures believe that water has memory. And not just the African culture. In India, I know as well that at least certain parts of India, people believe that water has memory. And so to tell the story that I wanted to tell, I wanted it to be someone speaking to the river, actually. So that's why it's like, tell us, mighty Niger, the things you've seen. Help us to remember what might have been before the ocean took away our kings and queens. And then the river answers back, and so when it answers back, it sort of hints at the fact that the history is very complicated, as it is, that whole history is a very complicated one. It's not a straightforward one, just like the river shape itself. And then it also says that, that waters can change course. So even if a history starts off a certain way, there's always a chance for it to turn around and go another way. And that brought in the theme of hope. Bless you.
Sorry.
No, bless you. Regardless of the past, there's also a lot of hope. And so if I could read the chorus. The river answered in response, "This tale has a winding course. Though tides cannot reverse the histories of the past, springs break up from rock and waters do change path." And it was just a very positive way to end the cycle. And the thing about this album, even though it's two separate song cycles by two different composers, it flows. The cycle itself has a very beautiful flow, and everything comes together beautifully. The first cycle dealing with the more internal aspects of conflict and resolution in our lives. And this cycle, even though it deals with a lot of the themes are more external, there's internal as well. It's everything. It's basically life. And yes, the river's course.
So yeah, this one I really I let my hair down, I guess, because it was this extra one to finish off with. Again, it has nods towards a different high life keyboard technique, and I have an arpeggio, which then the second verse is doubled in thirds, and then the third time is 3-note chord, so it builds up. Also tying into what so the way this was presented, which is verse chorus, felt a very traditional kind of structure, and what Chinwe was saying about finding a style that isn't very kind of obscure and high flown. And in fact, this song, as Chinwe knows, I made a version of for children's choir, and it works
Yes.
really well for upper voice choir.
Yes.
And we took that on with the school I teach at. We took that on tour to Belgium in the summer, and then I also do things like a cheeky key change just going into the final chorus, which I kind of again slightly indulged myself and allowed myself to have the fun. But I think sometimes there is a danger for all composers, and I think it's something I fall into, of overcomplicating, and there's complicated bits in this, but this song I wanted to be very simple, very straightforward, very direct, fun, ends with a proper high note for the singer, so it's kind of got a what's called in musical theatre a button. It's got a real kind of, this says this is the end of the song cycle. So the end, as we said, was quite downbeat, and that previous song ends thoughtfully. Then we have this kind of anti-overture at the end, which just kind of throws it all up in the air and just has some fun. And I think I think it really works really well both in this version for solo singing, but when you hear it sung by younger children, where you get this sense of the enthusiasm of it and the kind of catchy rhythms and so on. So this was me having some fun and allowing myself to do those kind of simple things, but trying to do them well, but not getting caught up in complexity and seriousness, having a little bit of fun.
Yes, and I just wanted to add for people, when I was introducing you to these West African and just African styles of music, it was the first time that you'd ever written things. Yeah,
well, first time. So I might have heard some music in this style before, but what I was doing when you sent it to me was actually looking at it analytically and saying, what can I find in this that produces something of interest for me as a composer. So not just can I listen to it, can I enjoy it, can I appreciate it, but can I get my hands dirty and roll up my sleeves and actually find some things within it, which I can do, as I say, in a respectful way and not in an approximating way, but just still me, but that actually led me into piano textures that I wouldn't otherwise have written, and also in that sense almost giving me permission to write simply and write straightforwardly, which sometimes as composers we kind of want to make things more complicated. We work away at them, and you add things and you add things and you add things. I guess with this song, if anything, I was taking away and trying to do less than I might otherwise be tempted to do.
Yes, I absolutely love it, and I love the fact also that you were just so open to learning and listening to different styles of music. Now we have some comments. So let's see. We have Russell Plows, so we'll say hello, I guess. But let me see, any comments from? So if anybody has any questions or comments, this would be a good time. If you're watching, and you are watching, we have an audience. Thank you so much for joining us. So if you have any questions for Bernard and I, please put them down. So let's see. We have some minutes. So the Rivers course, we actually have on YouTube as a music video. So if you put the name of our album and you put the Rivers course and Bernard's name, it will come right up. Beautiful live recording of the song. Just wanted to give some time if there are going to be any questions, But if not, then we will end with the Rivers course. Yes. Let's see. Can you think of anything, Bernard?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to say some more.
Please.
It's a project. I mean, worth saying that I had initially an email out of the blue from you, Chinwe, and I have to say, out of all, I do have a website, and I do get communications through that website, and quite often they're slightly dispiriting in that they're spam or they're asking me for a favor or whatever it might be. So it was an absolute pleasure to get something from Chinwe, which has turned from an approach, just a cold call approach, through my website, that has ended with a completed song cycle, 25-minute song cycle, and an album, and that's such a joy. And you know, I can still remember where I was when I picked up your email. I was playing cricket.
Oh,
I was playing cricket, and it was the break in the middle of the game of cricket, and I found this email. And if you'd said to me at that point, you know, even having got the email, will this lead anywhere? Well, you know, as a composer, you have over the course of time I've been working so many things which something is suggested, and it never, for one reason and another, never happens. Or you know, there's always things that might happen, but the majority of them don't. And for this to have gone from that initial approach from Chinwe to where we are now, I'm so delighted and so grateful to Chinwe, and to work with Chris Glynn, who is a you know, wonderful pianist and really leading song accompanist, and he got these accompaniments straight away. And then with Isabel Harley who came on board fairly late in the day, but was an absolute dream to work with. So it has been a real pleasure. And also, I should pay tribute to Stuart,
yes,
who's the other composer on the disc, who I've known his work for a long time. We met once many years ago. He lives in Scotland. I live in London, and I hope at some point we can meet again. But it's a real pleasure, real honour for me to be on an album with Stuart, and so all around just an absolute pleasure. So thank you, Jimmy.
And I'll say thank you to you. Honestly, this album and our cycle, it has just been such a joy. Yes, it's been a lot of work because and that's a long story. You know, I never knew it would grow, but once I saw that it could grow, I just couldn't let up. You know how I've been going, like a little train. But I'm just so grateful that you gave me the opportunity to do that. And I think it's a wonderful album. Sometimes I feel awkward because it's your own work, you know. Should you speak that way about your own work? But I just have to say that I really enjoy these songs. I really do. And chance to work with you was just amazing. And yeah, I'm really happy. And let's see, any news for us? Nothing. Yeah, just some little things here and there, just touching the radio stations and things like that, trying to get, you know, as many people as possible. So the whole purpose of this was to get people to listen more to our living composers. You know, I love the epic composers as much as anyone does, but I think it's important for the future to also support and have our living composers like Bernard have more of the work out there and performed live. That's my philosophy on this. So
there is a comment. Could we post a link? I mean, it is widely available in on all the streaming services and CD on and download. I'm just. Is there a?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There is such a link. Let's see. I have 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes to find it. So I'm gonna come off and try to quickly, let me see solo layout here, and let me try and quickly find that. Okay.
I just found it, Chinwe.
You found it? Oh, thank you. The purchase points, right?
The link tree, which should have everything on it. So I've just posted.
Okay.
It's not letting me post in there, so I posted it in the private chat. I don't seem to be able to post in the.
Okay, let me see. Hold on.
Post.
Oh gosh, let me see.
I posted it in the private chat.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in. Let's see. And copy. It's coming over here. Yeah, I see. Okay, so I'll say thank you. Yeah, I'll put it there in the comments. Thank you for joining us. There is a link to our. So I hope you've all enjoyed this live stream. I've certainly enjoyed speaking with Bernard as always and sharing our work with you. And let's see, get this there. Yeah, put that in there. And there we go.
Thank you, Chinwe.
Yes, thank you, Bernard. And thank you everyone who joined us. We really appreciate it. And we hope you love our album as much as we enjoyed, putting it all together and sharing it with you. Thank you very much. And until later, please subscribe to my channel, Writer Chinwe John. And Bernard has a Twitter, which you're already on. He's got a Facebook, a LinkedIn, and a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, and a website, bernardhughes.net.
There you go. So you can find us there, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you. Bye.